She is a prolific writer, having written some 10 biographical books that we know of, and probably other things that we don't. She's the sole biographer, as far as I'm aware, of Saint Sarah Bull, and also Josephine MacLeod.
Josephine MacLeod, Sri Ramakrishna's mother, Holy Mother's mother, and Sister Sudhira.
Yeah.
A book about Shihor, the place where Holy Mother's mother came from.
So these are all original.
And,
yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I don't know what else.
Yeah.
Swami Saradananda.
Yes.
In America, and Sister Nivedita in contemporary newspapers. And now I'm working on, and some of them have been translated into Bengali also, so,
yeah.
and other languages.
And we can see many more books are there inside you.
Yeah. Yeah, there are.
So that's fine.
Always going on.
So thank you, and would you please give your talk? Thank you.
Thank you. It seems odd that everyday problems that we have can help us in our spiritual life, but if we manage them, we can make use of them, and these problems and people in all situations give us an opportunity to develop self-control, patience, perseverance, and other spiritual virtues. I can tell you 5 ways in which we can get spiritual benefit from everyday problems. Firstly, we can learn detachment by making our minds making our minds the master and convincing ourselves through reasoning. This is the first way. Then we can give up the sense of possessiveness, the sense of I and mine. This is the second way. Third, try to live in the present. 4, create a positive state of mind, telling yourself that whatever happens is for my good. And 5th, offer everything to the Lord. Now, what happens to ordinary people? They are constantly elated or depressed by whatever situations they find, but it's a myth. What is happening cannot depress you or elate you. It's your reaction to what is happening that affects you. If someone calls you an ass, then you can say, sorry, there's something wrong with your eyes. For most people, having no problem is happiness, and having a problem is unhappiness. People live their lives with this ignorance. The secret of being happy, in spite of having problems, very simply said, is to separate emotion from experience. It is becoming a witness. I experience someone scolding me. Somebody praises me. Can't I just experience it without reacting? Now, I've had so many experiences like that myself in monastic life. Once I was in one of our centers as a novice nun, and someone scolded me bitterly for something I had no idea what she was talking about. What I certainly didn't do it. and she made me feel really bad. So I walked away with a long face, and as I was approaching another building, a sannyasini was there. She said, "What happened to you?" I said, "So-and-so scolded me." So she made me feel bad. Then this sannyasini said to me, "So-and-so wanted you to feel bad, so you feel bad." Well, that turned my mind around. Then I understood that I didn't have to react to that. Since it had nothing to do with me anyway, why should I have felt bad? So I began to apply that, and after some time, I was found to be scold-proof. In fact, when I was in our Delhi center, our Atma Pranaji used to scold me, making me stand for an hour sometimes, listening to all the faults that she found since the time that she met me. And I would sometimes, at the beginning, try to defend myself. And then I found, no, it's better to try to soothe her, try to console her. And that worked. So then I began to be scold-proof. Now, there were, a group of people who were members, they were members of a choir, and they were practicing their music on a stage. And in the corner of that stage, a mechanic was hammering nails. He was repairing a corner of the stage. And every time his hammer was making so much noise, the leader of the choir glared at him. But he didn't stop. He went on with his hammering. And after the choir practice was over, and everyone was quiet, the mechanic looked up and he said, "Oh, you can go on with your practice, it's not disturbing me." So, it's a matter of the way you see it. I was telling some people that Swamiji had a disciple, Alice Mead, in Southern California. And she served Swamiji very, very well in many ways. But he scolded Alice a lot because she was near, and there was when he'd get annoyed with something, he'd scold her. And he would say, "Oh, Mother brings me such fools to work with," and things like that. Well, Alice became scold-proof. One day, Swamiji said to her, "You are a silly, brainless fool. That's what you are." And then and he went on like that, and some other woman walked in the room, just in between, and Miss Aspinall. And Swamiji stopped scolding. And then Alice said to Swamiji, "Swamiji, don't mind Miss Aspinall. You go on with your scolding if you're not finished." She perfectly well took that scolding. So what could Swamiji do? But she became so detached. Now, this is, we constantly form opinions, judge, evaluate, add meanings and interpretations, and find fault with people and things and situations. But they, in themselves, need not disturb us. It's our interpretation of them that gives us a problem. So now the second way that I found to get spiritual benefit from everyday problems is by giving up the sense of I and mine, possession and possessiveness. In India, for example, there are markets where animals are sold, called a pashuhat. I've seen in the village maybe camels and cows and various farm animals are sold. Well, one man had bought a cow, and he was taking that cow home, and dragging it behind him, and then the cow, by some accident, that cow that he bought, it was struck by a vehicle and died. And this man felt very sorry, but whether he felt sorrier or the person who sold the cow felt sorry. Who should have felt sorrier? The person who bought the cow, or the person who sold the cow and had nourished the cow since he had it, before he sold it. Actually, the person who just bought the cow would have thought that the cow belonged to him. So he would have felt worse than the person who'd already gotten rid of it. So it's a matter of one's attitude, rather. This attitude of possession that affects us. I can give another example. Once the Buddha, probably some of you know this, the Buddha was traveling with his disciple Ananda, and he was carrying his kamandalu, his water pot. Well, at one point they were begging for their alms, and a woman opened the door and started scolding the Buddha. Why, you parasites? Why don't you work? You beggars live off the public, and you don't do any work yourselves. You're just a parasite. And she went on like that for some time, and again slammed the door without giving any alms. So the Buddha just went on, and Ananda going with him. Ananda was very disturbed. He said, how could you just take that woman talking to you like that? It's terrible. She called you a parasite. I feel so angry. I'm going to go back and give her a piece of my mind. And Buddha said, nothing doing, you don't go back. And then he handed his water pot to Ananda. He said, Ananda, you hold my water pot. Okay. He was privileged to carry the Buddha's water pot. Then Buddha said, whose water pot is that? Then Ananda said, of course it's yours. You just gave it to me to hold. All right. Ananda, I give you that water pot. Oh, you're gifting it to me? Yes, I'm gifting it to you. Then after some time he asked, Ananda, whose water pot is that? Ananda said, why, it's mine. And then Buddha said, what do you mean it's yours? It's the same water pot? Just before you said it's mine and now you say it's yours? Then Ananda said, well, yes, before you said it was I should hold your water pot, and now I'm carrying. You have given it to me, so it's mine. And then the Buddha said, well, see, you are absolutely confused, Ananda. You think that water pot now is yours, and before you said it's mine, and just like that, when the lady called me a parasite, I didn't accept what she said. I didn't accept her words. So then to whom do her words belong? If I don't accept them? Why, they belong only to her. Because you didn't accept them, she said those words, then they belong to her. So like that, we should not get annoyed. The idea is we think that we possess things. We have to give up that idea. You think that your mind is yours, but most of the things that you fill your mind with are other people's ideas. The language that you learn is you learn from someone else. So is it yours? You have your brain, but you didn't create that brain. Your body is yours, you may say, but you didn't create the body. Your parents created that body. That flat you own in another city that you think that that's yours. You're a trustee, not the possessor. So when that arrogance goes away, you feel a kind of gratitude. When the I goes, the mental fever goes. Now I tell another story. Once there was a king who used to get very depressed, and he didn't know what to do for his depression. He saw lots of people happy and laughing and enjoying life, but he felt depressed. He asked his minister, "When will I feel happy?" And the minister said, "When your eye goes." When eye goes, when eye goes. The king's eyes lit up. He took out his sword and he was about to cut off his minister's head. The minister said, wait, not my eye. When your ego goes, then you will be happy. Oh. See, if you're married, you have one set of problems, and if you're not married, you have another set of problems. If you have children, you have some problems. If you don't have children, then you have problems. There are all kinds of problems, and everyone has problems, but there's a difference. Now, everyone grows old, but there's a difference between growing old and aging. I find that aging is adding years to your life, and growing old is adding life to your years. By spirituality, you can grow and expand. Now, there are all kinds of ways to deal with the problems. There was, if you have one very big problem, then you forget about the small problems. There was a man who went to a shoe shop and ordered a pair of shoes. Well, he wanted, his foot was size 9, but he ordered a pair of shoes of size 6. And the salesman said, "Sir, are you sure you want those shoes? They won't fit you, they'll cause you pain." He said, "Yes, I want those shoes." "But why?" Never mind, just take my money and give me the shoes." "All right. But please tell me why you want to take shoes that are much too small for you." He said, "Oh, you see, I have such problems. When I wear shoes that are too tight for me, all I can think of is the pain in my feet. I can't remember any of my problems. And when I go home, my wife can nag me all she wants. I can't even think of it. My feet pain so much. And just think of the relief I feel at night when I take off the shoes." So, human problem is often a problem of conflict, and we have to learn the art of relieving the conflict. I better get on to the next. Now, the problem mainly is that desires pursue us. We always want something that we don't have. Once in a village, there was an announcement. Over the loudspeaker, everyone could hear that pack up all your problems and put them in an imaginary bag and take them to the other side of the river and leave them there. And when you come back, all your desires will be fulfilled. I thought, this is crazy, but the announcement went on the whole day. So some of the people got together and they said, look, let's do it and see what happens. So they went, they did that. They put their problems in an imaginary bag, and then they took that imaginary bag across the river, and then they came back. And some of them found exactly what they wanted. Some wanted a house, and so they found there was a new house on their property. Beautiful house, just what they wanted. Another person wanted a car or something else, whatever. But then when they came back and they saw, oh, my neighbor also wanted a house, but his house is bigger than my house. Now, why didn't I want a house that was like that? And so you see, there's no end to the even if you get what you think you want, you want something else. You'll see that somebody else has something that you want. So the desires never end. Then once Raman Maharshi was discussing with this problem with a disciple. And he used to say that happiness does not belong to the world of objects. One person who heard this objected and said, I can't accept that. You see, Raman Maharshi said, there was a dog eating a dry bone, and as it was chewing and chewing that bone, blood came out of its mouth from the sharp bone, and it cut the dog's mouth, and the dog thought that the blood was coming from the bone and kept on enjoying it. And the more he chewed, the more blood came. So the dog's guru, dogs have a guru also, the dog's guru came and told him, look here, my son, the bone you're chewing, it is not giving you that blood. The blood is coming from within. The dog laughed and said, oh, how can that be? Before I started chewing the bone, the blood was not there. And after chewing the bone, the blood was there. So it must be the blood came from the bone. So as we think that our desires are being fulfilled from outside, that we are enjoying things of the senses from outside, from the object itself, then we are thinking of in terms of a dog's logic. Actually, what we enjoy in this world is our own reaction to the things. Now, the third means of getting spiritual benefit from problems is to live in the present. When you are in the mode of hope, hoping this will happen, hoping the children will succeed, hoping your work will be fruitful, hoping your relatives won't demand anything. When you are in the mode of hope, where are you? In the present? No. In the future? In the past. When you are in the future, the present isn't available. When you are in the past, it's not available. Life only opens up in the present. If you are programmed to look into the past and the future, as most of us are, You will never be in the domain of the present unless you learn to change your ability to enjoy what is happening now to be in the present. When the future comes, your mind will again go to the future. You will go on missing life, and therefore death becomes a painful experience because we have never lived properly. A person worries that now he is making a lot of profit, but he is worried whether his children will maintain his empire. He is afraid that they will not, so he gets depressed right now. And so we don't actually live. We're only living in our imagination. Now, there was one example I gave. It's not so good. A Zen master was about to die. His disciples came and asked, "Oh, Master, would you give us some last teaching?" The master said, "I will tell you. Please give me a piece of cake." They got the cake, and he ate it and said, "Ah, this cake was so delicious," and he died. That was the final teaching. What was it? Even a small act, like eating a cake, with awareness in the present moment, becomes delicious. Life becomes delicious. Everything should be fun, or there is something wrong. If you don't enjoy what you are doing now, you will postpone it. You will go on procrastinating. People postpone actions, often because they are bored. Once there was a meeting at a Vedanta society. The topic of the class, of the lecture, it was must have been something like Brahma Sutras or something very dry that everyone began to squirm in their seats. When the lecture was over, the Swami announced, "Well, the lecture is now over, but those who belong to the managing committee will please go up to the library after the class, after the lecture now, for a board meeting." So when everyone left, the Swami himself went upstairs to the library, and he found some gentlemen there who didn't belong to the managing committee. And he said, "I'm sorry, sir, but this meeting is only for the members of the board, so will you please leave now because everyone will be coming soon," he said. The man said, "But if there was anyone as bored as I am, then they would be here." So, we have to concentrate on the action, and the result will come. By habit, we worry about something that has already happened. But we have to break this habit pattern. These bad habits of thinking wrongly of the past and the future and worrying, how can we break the habit? Well, what is habit? Habit. If you take off the first two letters, what have you left? Bit. A habit is made bit by bit, and it is broken bit by bit. Now, the fourth means of spiritual benefit from daily problems is to consider that whatever happens is for my good. Well, once a king went on a hunting expedition with his minister. In an encounter with a lion, the king managed to kill the lion, but the lion bit off his finger, his thumb. The king was very much upset about that. His minister was with him, and the minister said, "Oh, Maharaj, whatever happens is for your good. Don't worry about that finger. It was the will of God. It truly happened for your own good." Now, this wasn't the right thing to say. The king got even more angry. And he took that minister and threw him in a nearby well. He said, you fool, is this the thing to say to me now? And the man, fortunately there was not so much water that he could drown. The well was shallow. So the minister said, "Oh, but it must be for my good." The king was so disgusted. He started walking away by himself towards the next village. But he had to go through the forest to the next village. And on the way, some thuggis caught him. And they captured him and tied him up. And the king was protesting. He was saying, you don't know who I am. I'm the king of this next village." "Oh, what do you mean, king of that place? So much the better to offer you to the goddess." He's going to be offered to the goddess. So they dragged him away. And when the sacrificer was about to sacrifice him, he saw, the king's thumb is missing. Well, you can't offer a defective offering to the goddess. So he said, "There's a dosha in the prasad. We can't offer this man. Take him away. Let him go." So the king that way got free. He said, "My minister was right. You see, if my thumb hadn't been cut off by that lion, then I would have been my head would have been cut off." So then he went back to the well and somehow got the minister out. And he said, he started apologizing to the minister. "Oh, I'm so sorry. You were right all the time. It was really for my good. Otherwise, my head would have been cut off." And then the minister said, "Oh, Maharaj, you don't apologize to me. It was for my good only that you threw me in the well." "What?" Yes. If you hadn't thrown me in the well, I would have been the perfect sacrifice for the goddess." So the foolish minister, whatever, he told the truth. So we have to develop a positive state of mind. Did you observe when people are happy, they constantly focus on what is missing? When they are unhappy, they constantly focus on what is missing. So they can never be content. Better get some water. This old age. There may be infinite things that you don't have. There are also infinite things that you have. If you focus on what is missing, you will always be unhappy. There's a doha of Kabir which says, "The waves are searching for the ocean. The cloth is searching for the cotton thread. The individual is searching for the blissful Lord. All three are great fools. The wave itself is the ocean. The cloth itself is the cotton thread. And the individual himself is bliss." Why are you not experiencing bliss? It's because the mind is agitated. Why is the mind agitated? It is agitated because you are living an egocentric life. Why are you egocentric? It's because you don't love. The fifth means to spiritual benefit from problems is to offer everything to God. Whatever I do, I offer it to the Lord. If I'm cleaning a room, I'm offering it to God. If I am taking a bath, I'm offering it to God. If you may say, I don't know the Lord, so how can I offer actions to him? Have you seen your great-great-grandfather? Yet you know he existed, but we have to offer with sincerity and not cheat, and simply say that we are offering, but not do it with love. Why don't you love? Because you have the fear that giving means losing something. So we cheat others and we cheat ourselves. Once a man was living in an apartment and he was overwhelmed by mice. There were mice everywhere and he couldn't get rid of them. So he got a mouse trap and he wanted to set it in the kitchen. And he was looking about for some bait. He had to put some bait inside the trap so the mouse would go. So he opened the fridge to take out a piece of cheese. There was no cheese. It was late at night, so he couldn't go out and buy cheese. But he saw on the table there was a magazine with an advertisement or something, picture of cheese. So he cut it out and he put it inside the trap. He said, these mice are stupid creatures. They can't tell the difference between a paper cheese and a real cheese. So he put the picture of the cheese inside the mouse trap and went off to sleep. The next morning when he got up, he eagerly went into the kitchen to see what mouse was trapped in his trap. So he saw from the doorway, yes, there was a mouse in the trap. He went closely to get the mouse. He saw it was a cut-out picture of a mouse. So we can't cheat. Now, these are the 5 means of facing everyday problems as disciplines for our spiritual benefit. 1, by making your mind the master, convincing yourself through reasoning. 2, get rid of the sense of I and mine. 3, live in the present. 4, create a positive state of mind. Tell yourself that whatever happens is for my good. And 5, offer everything to the Lord. Here, a magazine picture won't do the trick. We can't cut out a picture of God and paste it on our hearts. We apparently offer, but without effect, because we do not put loving gratitude in our hearts. Now I had something else to say. How to love? How do you learn to swim? You get in the water and try. Most of our prayers are for reforming God and not ourselves. We think that we have to remind him again and again. Is he deaf? He came to this earth because he loves us. If you would realize that, you would offer everything that you do with loving gratitude, and your problems would become insignificant. Thank you. I thought that you weren't going to be here, so I gave this silly talk.
Now you'll give the right one. Any questions?
smells lovely. Once my guru told me, everything should be fun, otherwise there's something wrong.
What was the first, I missed that.
Pardon?
What was the first virtue?
The first, I have to see myself. The first one was to make your mind the master. Convince yourself by reasoning.
Thank you.
You were saying there, if you think what you don't have, you'll always be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
But the same infinity applies the other way. If you think what you do have,
Mm-hmm.
there's no end to happiness. Because you have everything.
Good idea. No questions, no. Yeah?
Sometimes I feel like I don't have the clarity of reasoning, so how to get to that, because
Reasoning.
yeah, what is right and what is wrong, just to convince myself, because like two sides of the logic pops up saying that, oh, this is selfishness or this is not selfishness, this should be the justified means.
But how would you know? You know. Actually, we know the truth. And maybe if you're really honest with yourself, you would know. The way we know the truth is because there's some response inside. There's no other way. I don't think there's any other way, do you? How do you know that there's something is true?
But most of
Someone
us
once asked Nagma Shai, how do you know if something is true? He said, because Sri Ramakrishna said so.
I think
You can take that also. If some great soul or some godman says something, then you can be pretty sure that's true. Find some authority.
In Nikhilananda's Mandukya Upanishad,
Yes.
he answers this question of how do you know something is true, and this was Subramanyam Iyer
Uh-huh.
was told
Oh.
that there's opinion and there's deep truth. And if you follow deep truth, it will benefit all of humanity and it will benefit yourself.
But how do you know that it's true? That deep
No,
truth?
but it's something.
It's something that reveals itself.
No, that is true. But what this is saying is that your action will benefit all of humanity.
Oh, I see. That the
I know.
result. You judge it by
Yes.
the result.
Yes.
what I was going to say was sometimes it's difficult if you're intellectual to try and balance this is right, this could be wrong, rather than actually feeling and experiencing.
Uh-huh.
And many of us, well, I know
Not
I
in touch
find
with
it
that feeling. That's
more difficult to be in touch with that knowing, with that experience. I can do the intellectual and try to be honest, but the experience of knowing internally is difficult.
When I was a small child, I think second grade, class 2, in our classroom there was written across the whole room on the above the blackboard, keep alive in your heart that little flame of celestial fire called conscience. I think it was by Roosevelt who said that, this American president who said that. But I remembered that when I was a child. It impressed me. you actually know in your heart if you if you develop that conscience, if you listen to your conscience. Is that okay? Is that good enough? Okay.
Think now. More questions?
Why, we have 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
We have the maximum time allocated to the human requirement for sleep, which is always 5 minutes more.
I love the idea of living in the present.
Yes.
You explained it very well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you really did. Because sometimes we think we're in the present, but we're not in the present. So I think the way you did explain it was so clearly.
Most of the time,
Yeah.
mind is thinking of what next, something next.
Or there's something else coming. But and it's not easy to live in the present because there's so much coming at you. But I thought it was a lovely, the way you did it was beautiful, yeah.
I heard that quote from the Buddha before. It's
Oh,
slightly different. If I bring somebody a present and they refuse to accept it, who does the present belong to? And then he said, similarly, if I offer abuse to somebody and they refuse to accept it, who owns
Yes.
it? So, I mean, it shows that attack is completely the opposite way to respond. You just refuse to take the
Yes.
abuse. And the other person is left with it. It's brilliant, really.
It's the matter of separating emotion from the actual experience.
Yeah. I mean, the world would say, how dare him, you know, the world would immediately say, you should react. But in fact, the opposite is the case. Yeah. And I believe with the Buddha, the person he spoke to became his disciple afterwards. That he might have said it more than once, but a similar situation I heard from a good source, and the person who offered the abuse became his follower. Yeah.
Oh, that may be. That lady, yeah. I told you that when I was a novice nun, that time I found out it worked to try to soothe the other person, because you see the situation. No, the other person is angry. Whether you are guilty or not, the other person is angry. So the thing to do is to soothe their anger.
Soothe their anger.
Yeah, that's the other person's problem, not yours. But you have to see it that way. Oh, I think that we have made it up to the point. Sorry, coffee.
Brief discussion, you should give the vote. So
You can
have the
apologize
honor.
for me for wasting their time with silly talk.
So I'd like to thank the Mataji, the two Matajis. We have two Matajis here. Sorry for that. So I'd like to thank both of them for being here. But Mataji, thank you for such a beautiful and simple 5-point directive on practical spiritual life, how to take daily management problems and spiritualize them really in a very practical way. So it's when there's a talk and you have something to take away with you, that's always good, and so we have that. Thank you very much. So we'd also like to give you a small token of our appreciation. There's also, just to remind you, I always forget when we have these things that announcements have to be made. So this coming weekend, we work from that. We have the workshop, Enneagram and Essence of Truth. This question of the ego is something we deal with exclusively on this course, because there's no such thing as a standard ego. We all have individually developed ones, and it becomes one of the biggest obstacles, classically what's called kleshas. So it's a workshop. Those who have been on the workshop will testify, I suppose, that it is a kind of milestone in their development. Now, we have 10 people, 10 occupied places, so I'm told we're permitted to go up to 12. So we have 2 places still available if you're interested. So that's the first announcement. Second, we're all off to Dungannon tomorrow. So we won't be here. It is our cultural day anyhow, where we explore Ireland to the maximum. But I would say that those who wish to join us, even though it's a weekday, we're leaving here about 8:30, and we're arriving, we're not just staying there with Andy Sen, so that we leave there about 9 o'clock. And for those who don't know, Dungannon is our place of pilgrimage, because it is a place where our sister Nivedita was born, Margaret Elizabeth Noble, in 1867. And so this is the place we go to, and we take visitors to go to and get a feel for the place where she was born. That's all the announcements that I have in mind at this point.
And next month there are more functions.
Next month, I don't want to overburden you with too many announcements, but next month we have some significant events. Obviously, the 16th of the month is Guru Purnima, and that would be significant potentially for some of you as well, and that happens to be a Tuesday. But then we also have Swami Girishanandaji, who's the trustee of the, he's manager of the Billion Mutt and trustee of the Ramakrishna Mutt Mission, who will be honouring us with a visit on the 22nd of July. And then, of course, we have a small, what we describe as moments with a monk, where we have Swami Vita Mohanandaji coming from Gretz in France, and he's coming for a few days, 2 days, and he's very, very spiritual. Those who have met him before will find that he emanates this spirituality, and so he's coming as well. So keep these moments in mind, keep these dates. That would be on the 27th of July. So thank you so much, and we look forward to the rest of your visit, and thanks for a wonderful talk.